Good morning, everybody. This is Pastor John with another edition of Monday Morning Quarterback. Yesterday we talked about when Jeremiah, was sent by God to go to the potter's house to see what the potter was doing. And he was watching the potter work on the clay, and the potter, didn't like what was happening, so he just kind of destroyed it and started over. And God was, talking about how, can I not do this with Israel? Can I not kind of rearrange it and start over and kind of make something new of it? And that's sort of where the scripture went. And we talked yesterday about how God deals with our brokenness, and essentially how, our brokenness is not something that we can eventually get rid of, but it is something we can learn to live with and not necessarily be ruled by. And I shared a quote from the TV series Shrinking on Apple TV, and I talked about how one character said to another character, letting go of the past doesn't mean, you don't have anything bad happen to you. It means you don't allow yourself to be defined or limited by your scars. And then the other character says, but I'm covered in them. He's covered in the scars. So the first character says, scars are the symbols of a life well lived. So you have a choice now. Stay stuck or go out and make more scars. And after I shared that, I talked about the Japanese philosophy, but also kind of artistic enterprise called Kintsugi, where they take broken things, bowls, jars, whatever, and they put them back together, but you see the seams. They make the seams obvious and decorative. And the whole point is they're celebrating the life and even the brokenness of this object. And that's sort of the way God responds to us, is we don't get rid of our scars, but we are no longer defined by them. Our scars become a part of a newer and truer beauty as a result of God's grace. And if you want to hear, more about that, you can check out the sermon itself. But what that means for us in our lives is that, we don't have to get things right. That's not our role in this world. Our job is not to get the answers right, to learn the correct dogma, to answer the questions correctly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not our job. Our calling, our job is to know and to love God and our neighbor to the best of our abilities. Success does not mean winning. Success means faithfulness. Now, I'll say that again because I think it's kind of meaningful. Success does not equal does not equal winning. It equals faithfulness. And really absorbing that and living by that requires dramatic changes in our consciousness, in our worldview. It's not something we're going to do overnight. I continue to work on that one. Continue to pray, for that kind of vision. One of the prayers that I pray is not really a prayer, it's a poem, but it's a poem that I've put in my prayer book, and it's called Messenger by Mary Oliver. Anybody that watches Monday Morning Quarterbacks knows I love Mary Oliver. So she wrote a poem called Messenger, and it really talks about, I think, what success is, even in the midst of being broken a little bit. So I'm going to share this with you. It's called Messenger by Mary Oliver. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums. Here the clam, deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The Phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, and the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing since all the ingredients are there, which is gratitude, to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth and to the wren, to the sleepy, dug-up clam, telling them all over and over how it is that we live forever. Now, for those of you watching that are, my age or further along, that phrase that she says in there that I find most meaningful is, are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still half perfect? What she's basically saying is, have I lived all this time and I'm still mostly broken, or at least half broken? Am I still only half perfect? I mean, am I a failure in that regard? Should I look back and regret? But she goes on and says, no, that's not what I should do at all. Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work. Then she goes on to talk more about her work, which is essentially loving the world. You see, she's presenting us with a choice. Can I get bogged down in my failures as the world understands success and failure? Or can I get up every day and try to love and to be loved more? That is success. That is faithfulness. Have a wonderful week, my friends. God bless.